Hi all and welcome to a new video. With Games Workshop recently raising their prices, again, I wanted to make a kind of time capsule of which wargame is the most expensive before those prices go into effect. Spoiler alert, it's still mostly Warhammer 40,000. These will be ranked from most expensive to least expensive. Skirmish wargames are excluded, and will probably get their own video later on, and I selected 10 wargames to keep myself from going insane. Now let's go over some of the rules of this. I will do my best to not be unfair and go with the most expensive armies or the cheapest, although I may mention what the cheaper armies are so you get an idea of a wider range. Bundles will be taken into account, especially ones geared towards starter players. If a website says start here, we start here, etc., etc. Some of these are war games I have never played and I don't think I ever will, like Warmachine or the Mantic Games, but I still go to their website and go from the start collecting and price it off, basing on that. Thinking I'm a new player, let's go with the new player experience. We are going off of the recommended game size from the game itself. So for Warmachine, that's 75 points. For Warhammer stuff, that's usually 2,000. That way we're fair to everyone, and we play at the game size that's recommended, not like the max game size. So, Well, let's get right into it with number 10. To absolutely no one's surprise, it's Warhammer 40,000. I priced out a Space Marine army. This Space Marine army is what I really could start with, but also I realized I owned almost all these models as I was doing it already, which makes me want to resell them because they're worth like $400 now. We start with the start collecting and then buy a Combat Patrol Dark Angels for the Marine models, which a new player would probably not know to do, but I'm going to do to try and shave off an extra $60-ish. Before enhancements, we are at 795 points and $270 USD. At this point, it kind of becomes personal preference. I added Assault Intercessors, the Ballistus Dreadnought, the Brutalis Dreadnought, the Desolation Squad, Redemptor Dreadnought, Repulsor Executioner, and a Scout Squad. The final total was 900 USD before tax. It was relatively even at 900 USD as well, although there is a little bit of wiggle room, but 900 USD for a 2,000 point Warhammer army when I swear it was like 400 to 600 when I started collecting just a few years ago. They really have inflated these a lot. Custodes are probably the cheapest army. You can get them for about $550 for a 2,000 point army, which is really funny because I remember pricing out a Custodes army and it was like $380. It is so much more expensive now. Now, middle of the line 40k can be cheaper, more expensive, but buying from GW at MSRP, you are looking at around $600 to $1,000 for most armies. You can get an FLGS discount on a lot of that stuff, but that's still going to be like $600 to $1,000 for most armies still. The few exceptions are really Custodes, and that's about it. Warhammer is expensive, and this needs to be reflected everywhere. It is last place for a reason. This is probably one of the worst war games to get into if you like your wallet, if not the worst. Especially with a lot of the issues they have with box sets taking so long to get in and out, and stuff being out of stock. I will go back to my previous recommendations and say just buy a secondhand army. You can find them for dirt cheap in a lot of places. And yeah, on to number 9. To my sadness, Age of Sigmar is number 9. Vanguard boxes are about 140 USD, and using Stormcast as a baseline, that gets us to 870 points. I added Bastion, Carthalos, Vindictors, Annihilators, Dracothian Guard, Vanguard Raptors, for a final total of 425 USD. Now, this is a more elite army. There are examples of more expensive armies, like the Sons of Behemoth. As a joke, they are definitely a horde army, we'll say. Their models cost $210 a piece, and you need 4 models for an army. It can still be expensive, but a vast majority of armies are under $600 to collect. And that is to do with the fact that the Vanguard boxes are actually reasonably priced. And we're going into a new edition that appears to be raising the points value on stuff instead of lowering it, which means armies are going to get a little smaller and easier to afford, and we might be revisiting this later on as good things Age of Sigmar 4.0 is doing. I love AOS. It's great. But it can still be expensive. It's one of my favorite game systems, but I would highly recommend this over Warhammer 40,000, because it's pretty much half the price of Warhammer 40,000 in a lot of its armies. Now, on to number 8. Conquest, Last Argument of Kings. This is a super easy and just a quick mention. They have army bundles semi-often, and they usually are around the 400 USD for a 2,000 point equivalent of the army. This was a super easy thing to research. It's something I've had my eye on for so long. Conquest is an amazing square-based skirmish wargame. I was unable to put Old World in this list, unfortunately, although it would be more expensive than Conquest. I think it would probably tie with Age of Sigmar, because most of the models aren't out yet. I don't know what GW's pricing scheme is for everything, so this is our kind of square-based representation in this list. Conquest Last Argument of Kings, play it, it's really good. I've read the rules multiple times, they're amazing. One day I will buy and play this game. Number 7 is Warmachine Mark IV. I know nothing about Warmachine. I did not really even know it existed that much before this. I just heard, like, the name, not what it is. I still don't know what it is, by the way. The website is not the best for navigation. I was trying to figure out what the difference between Warmachine and Warmachine Mark IV was, and there was, like, I couldn't really figure that out. I found, according to the internet, that 75 points is the normal game size. And as a new player, it seems like the smartest thing to do would be to buy an army starter plus an expansion. And that gets you to 330 USD. It's not bad at all. And for 330 bucks for an army, that's amazing. Buying individually seems to be a lot more expensive, but if you looks like if you just got an extra unit or two, depending on the starter box, it might be just around $260. But it's kind of hard to tell, and I just wanted to mention both the amounts. It's not that expensive. It's a lower model count. It looks like an interesting game. I don't think I'll overplay it, because there's not really anyone near me who plays Warmachine, but, you know, it's good to learn about and good to know about, I guess. And now I am cheating. Number 6 and number 5 is just Mantic Games. Mantic gets its own section. The wargames they sell are so ridiculously cheap. You can get entire armies under $200 USD. I priced out both King of Wars and Firefight and got under $200 for both. I have never used any of their rules. I appreciate how cheap these models are. They also look to actually be pretty darn good. Like, I really like the way they look. They're cool. Like, it's great. It's fantastic. I absolutely love all of their themes they have going on. And I am now mildly tempted to get into Mantic because they are just dirt cheap. Like, you barely spend anything comparatively. You could get like 6 Mantic armies for the price of just 1 Warhammer army, depending on what you collect. Oh my god, that is terrible. That is so terrible. Anyway, Mantic is a real winner here because I knew of it, but oh my god, is it so much better than I thought. Number 4 is Bolt Action. Bolt Action is another cheaper and easy to recommend game. I absolutely love Bolt Action. It is amazing, it is fantastic. The alternate activation system it has going on is the best in its class. This is one of my favorite war games ever. With 3rd edition around the corner, it's really exciting. Bolt Action is starter armies on Warlord's site for $166 USD. Well worth every penny, and unlike Games Workshop, they need the support. Go play Bolt Action. Now, there are alternate ways to buy Bolt Action armies. I will not be going over them here. They are often more expensive than this. All you need to know is it's 166 USD on Warlord's website. Your local game store might have it for a little cheaper, or just, not paying for shipping. So go out there, buy some more World War II minis, and have fun with one of the more unique game systems that exists in our universe. I am cheating a little bit here. I am putting BattleTech Alpha Strike at number 2. Cheating, since I would normally call BattleTech a skirmish game, but Alpha Strike is not a skirmish game, in my opinion. BattleTech is really easy to tell you what to do. You buy a game of Armored Combat and the Alpha Strike box set. From Amazon, both of these add up to 101 USD, which would put them in first place. However, those are sale values. MSRP is 140 USD, so not first place when bought MSRP. Both of those boxes have enough to play a full game of Alpha Strike, including terrain. They are great, they are fantastic, it is all you need to start playing BattleTech, and Alpha Strike is really dirt cheap comparatively. Honestly, as we go on to number 1, which should be obvious to many people from the theming of my channel, I am realizing just how much I enjoy these cheaper war games in comparison to Warhammer 40,000, and making this video has made me realize I'm just done with Warhammer 40,000. Like, I have some armies on my shelf, and I'll play those, but there's gotta be a really, really good reason for me to even want to buy another model, because For one Warhammer model, I can get almost a full army in 3 other game systems I play, at least. Age of Sigmar, unfortunately, has a stranglehold on my heart, so I can't say that about it. Same with Old World. I love both of those so much. Now that my rambling is over, let's move on to number 1. I can't lie, I was actually shocked about this one. Star Wars Legion. This is another easy one to price out. Legion has armies in boxes, they're Battle Force boxes. These add up to about 800 points. They cost an average of 130 to 140 USD. So, extremely cheap compared to the competition. In my searches, I found every single army box for under 135 USD, which is why I beat BattleTech. And yeah, it's so much cheaper, and the models are still really good. I love Legion. It is one of my favorite war games, period. And this just solidifies my love of the game even more. Also, if you don't buy a bundle, you can still end up saving a lot comparatively, under 200 for a lot of armies. Linked above is a fun little video I made about the cheapest ways to start collecting Legion. Legion is cheap, and it is good, because it is so cheap. And I highly recommend it. It is a very solid rule system with a lot of new releases coming out in the next year or two. It is still a supported game, and it still is going to have a presence over the next few years. It is Star Wars, after all. It'll always do well. And according to the Legion Reddit, there's a really big influx of recent players, so something else to look out for. This turned out very different than I expected it to when I started the research. I was looking on Games Workshop's web store, saw the price raises on their Warhammer community article, and just wanted to know what's expensive, what's not. I'd also love to know what war games you play that I did not put in here that are cheaper or better in your opinion. I've come out of this realizing I got out of 40k at the right time, and while some people will probably say something about 3D printing, I avoided it because, while 3D printing is useful, it's also a very expensive thing to get into. I can see why so many Warhammer 40,000 players use 3D printing now, and I was one of them who did. But having it all in front of you in a spreadsheet really makes it look different. I hope everyone here learned something today, or you found a game you want to try out. Have a wonderful weekend all, and I'll see you all next week.